Hello and welcome to the next episode of Inspire Interactives. Inspire is a digital magazine launched by All India Professionals Congress, the AIPC, and is available on its official website. AIPC is a department of the Indian National Congress that brings together professionals from all walks of life and stands committed to the tenets of diversity, inclusivity, and equality. The Inspire magazine includes interviews, articles, and features carefully curated from varied sources and focused on areas of common concern. We at Inspire interact with thought influencers, change makers, policy makers, AIPC fellows, and indeed non-fellows. In short, anyone and everyone with a perspective to share and a desire to be heard, Inspire Interactives is the platform for you. It is also our constant endeavor to showcase the work being done in different parts of the country by our fellows, each AIPC fellow a professional in their own right. Inspire provides all of us with a dynamic shared space to discuss issues that matter to us and, more importantly, to society at large and the nation in particular. I'm Dr. Vandana R. Singh, Editor-in-Chief of the Inspire Digital Magazine. And we have here with us today Mr. Ravindra Garimella. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Garimella, on Inspire Interactives. Mr. Garimella is presently Secretary to Leader of Opposition, Rajya Sabha. He was formerly Joint Secretary Legislation in the Lok Sabha Secretariat. An author and consultant on parliamentary and legislative matters, he has also been visiting fellow at University of Warwick and University of Nottingham in the UK. Mr. Garimella, as our viewership is made up largely of professionals from all walks of life, this part of people's life is always of special interest to us. We are keen to know of professional journeys of people that we meet. And in that light, would you like to share with us how you got associated with parliamentary service in the Lok Sabha Secretariat? Over to you.
Namaskar, good evening, and thank you for your kind introduction, Vandana ji. In fact, at the very outset, I would like to say how I entered into parliamentary service is also, I would like to term it as a fortuitous happenstance. Like, in fact, my career options had been corporate law, and I was working in that, giving various exams straight from law school and university. And then my knowledge, in fact, I knew the very basics about our political, our democratic polity, what is need to be known, and that's about it. The only other political interest was watching the famous BBC serial Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. And of course, I was too engrossed with my corporate law and the legal matters. And as an hobby, of course, I was fond of reading English literature, all classics, P.G. Wodehouse, Agatha Christie, Swami Vivekanand works, etc. So while I was planning my career and working on various arenas in giving Indian economic service, this position came across because the induction in Lok Sabha Secretariat, and it is not done on a regular basis. So since I was already in a preparatory mode, I gave that exam and just forgot about it. So when I got an interview call, it was kind of a pleasant surprise for me. I just went for the interview with an open mind, and subsequently I got a call that I got selected. So that is how I had entered the parliamentary service. But because given my legal background, I was straight away posted, because I was straight away posted in the legislative division, and that too in table office. Table office anywhere in all parliaments, it is the hub. It sees A to Z of the parliamentary proceedings during session and also when the house is not in session. But then why I gave this brief intro was that was a defining moment for me. So while in table office and soon in few years, given my because I joined at a point of time, well, the old guard was still there. I mean, we were one of those the new entrants who directly entered the service at a young age in their 20s, and then I had the advantage of learning on desk from the masters who had done from then. And in those days the research meant that one he had to go to the library, go to the archives, see the original constituent assembly debates and call out, so on and so forth. And then of course in few years I had been very fortunate. I had the occasion to interact with both experienced senior officers as well as with also senior parliamentarians. Early on, I was also put on the FA officer at the table, being at the table of the house. So from then on, in fact, a process. In fact, my interest in the parliament and the working of the parliament, how our democratic polity works, it happened in front of my eyes. It was a kind of an eyewitness account. So from there on, in fact, I became more and more involved in the parliamentary world. So, as at the very beginning, I said, while I never had any interest or any interest or any inclination as such, but when I saw what is happening in front of my eyes and see the vibrancy of how our system works, so in fact over the years in the professional journey I evolved. I got an excellent opportunity to see our parliamentary system uh, uh, working at a very close quarters, and that has in fact changed my entire perception. From there on, uh, I never looked back. So I felt that now this was my chosen field. And then of course with the interactions with the old guard and also very senior parliamentarians, and talking to them and witnessing the proceedings of the house and how it pans out and how vibrant and how stable it is, irrespective of the fact which party is in power.
Yes.
But the vibrancy, because one thing I wanted to, and this also gave me an opportunity to share, because soon thereafter I became a faculty of the Bureau of Parliamentary Studies and Training, now renamed as Pride. Here, in fact, we can, if we talk about vibrant and effective parliaments, so we can be counted in the top 4 or 5, because you have UK, you have US, Australia, Canada, and few European parliaments, of course. But then they had a backup of almost 3 centuries of experience behind them. Whereas in a very short time, other than that, and ours is it has got a very kind of challenges which our democratic policy faced, which the Western developed democracies may not have faced, because that kind of differences that come, I mean, from north to south or east to west, you have different languages, dialects, and different areas of interest, which in a very short time, because when we talk about vibrancy of a democratic polity, a decades is nothing. I mean, what we have achieved in such a short time, that speaks volumes about our system.
Yes.
Uh, uh, uh,
That's
yeah.
wonderful. I think one, what you said, that, from having no intentions of um, taking this up as
Hmm.
a profession, today you are an authority on parliamentary procedures. So that's
Yeah.
really very wonderful. And the other, what you said, that um, our parliamentary systems are very robust and that and clearly have stood the test of time. Very interesting. I mean, when you said it, I realized one never thought of it in that way, that the other parliaments that we compare with are centuries old, while we are still decades old. But we are sturdy and we are robust. So that's indeed very, very heartening to know. On that same note, I was wondering if you'd like to share with us some experiences that have been in your life as a parliamentary officer that have left an impact on you, or something that you might want to share with our viewers.
So one thing, yeah, I'm glad you asked this question, because one thing why I noticed by being on the table, I could see that in fact I can recall one member, because I will not take any names. I mean, he was saying, he says that ours is the only profession where we are accountable and we are in the public gaze throughout. Take it any other service. So I mean, it is not open to public. I mean, anybody and everybody can comment upon us, and every 5 years we have to go to the polls. If there is a stable government and if there is a fractured mandate, even before that, and we are answerable to the people. So if we say that, I mean, he was speaking in chaste Hindi, but then I could see, I could see, I mean, they have the, and so that is one thing. They say that we are accountable to the people 24 into 7. And then even when a member comes to the house, it starts at 11. They will be coming by 10:30 or 10:40. But prior to that, they have invariably, most of the members meet their constituents. People come from far away, from distant places in the country to meet their MP. So they will meet them around 7:30 or 8 and hear them out, so that they can raise that issue on the floor of the house. And with the television also, and with the smartphone, that people have an access exactly what their member is speaking, how it is being raised. The other thing is, what I have felt is like, it is irrespective of the fact, of course, there has been like, the members who get the members of parliament, they do have the pulse of of the nation, the pulse of the people. I have seen some members who otherwise someone, I mean, if you just uh, pass across them, you may not know what kind of wealth of knowledge that member, he or she, might be having. When they start speaking, most of them, they speak extempore, and they speak with a robust common sense, and logic. So in fact, and they have been sharing. And then one interesting experience from my initial days at the table, I was at the table, I saw one senior leader of opposition, I mean, raising a very topical issue and was quite agitated and wanted a response from the concerned minister. The minister also, in his emphatic and equal measure, was responding. So I mean, was my very early days. I thought they were really at loggerheads. And then when the house will disperse, so that member from the opposition was making a strong point in very emphatically and stressful, and the minister was also trying to defend and counter each and every point what the member was raising. And then the house adjourned for recess. When they came to the inner lobby, and then when the house adjourned for recess for 1 hour, which is the usual practice, I also came out. When I saw, immediately the minister said, and he just put a hand on the shoulder of the opposition member, come, let us have coffee. They went to the central hall, had a coffee. So then that day, I realized what they say on the floor of the house is they would be putting across their party's ideologies. As an opposition member, they have to put their point of view and what their constituents want. As a minister, as a political executive, the minister would have to say. But so that was one kind of a revelation which struck to me. And in my initial days, the senior officers used to tell me that you keep your eyes open, ears open, and keep your mouth shut, and keep and speak only when you are required to speak, because it meant most of the things I have observed by observing actually what is happening. There is a lot of convergence. And the other important thing which I feel is, irrespective of the differences which the various parties may have, of course, we have to see one more thing. We had, of course, for a long time, we had one party which was in power. Then, of course, there was an experiment with coalition government of 77 to 79. Again, the Indian National Congress came with 367 members, and that was very popular. And but then, so even though then again 89 to 90, we had a fractured mandate. And then, but 91 to 96, 10th Lok Sabha was not a clear mandate. But then we had two quick Lok Sabhas, 11th and 12th Lok Sabhas. Thereafter, unlike in Italy or other countries where there is a fractured mandates, the governments fell like nine pins. And then, so we have a self-correcting mechanism device within our own system. So then they realized, why not to have a pre-poll alliance? So 1999, I would attempt, from my experience, is a purely my impressions, that there have been a paradigm shift in our democratic polity. We had a unipolar thing. Then we had an experimentation, two experimentations with coalition governments. But then, so they had a pre-poll alliance even before they went to the polls. Then came NDA, and then there that almost ran its entire course, barring that 6 months, because prior to the 6 months of the term, it went to polls. Then we had two successful experiments in UPA 1 and UPA 2. It means then the people and the political party themselves realized that let us go as a pre-poll alliance, as a coalition to the people, instead of, because after, so thereafter, that experiment, that thing never occurred, like the governments 96 to 97 and 98 to again 99. Then came another, I mean, it's a cycle. Then again, a party with a full mandate had come over. But having said that, because during the course, what has happened is, because I wanted to do this LLM, also MPhil and PhD, because the working hours are so severe, so we hardly got any time. But what happened was, there was a professor, I was referring to my fellowship at University of Warwick. I was the only person who is not even having MPhil, because they wanted somebody who has in their terms, practitioner's perspective, who actually sees how the house goes. So I had assisted them. They had Professor Shirin Rai to, how actually the house works, how there is a convergence among them. So they invited me to their closing ceremony in 2011, which was Leverham Test, which was held in 2 days at the end of October in the conference room of House of Lords, Westminster, and in British Library. So thereafter, of course, when they felt, because there were many things, because I have found many people, many students in the UK universities, they have got their doctorates on working on Indian democratic polity. But then they also felt, but that was they are well researched works, but then they were all from an academic point of view, because what actually happens is entirely different. In fact, that had set me in a different mode. Like, they wanted me to share actually what happens, because sometimes you feel, you have found that in the house runs, first half there are a lot of disturbances, and second half suddenly it becomes all very cool and the bill gets passed. What happens is, the members will say, look, we have to raise this matter, but the government says this is a very important bill. So in Previously, I'm talking I'm talking as a parliament as an
Yes.
entity which comprises, because as parliamentarians the fraternity of parliamentary is one, so they say okay, sometimes there is an agreement, okay, we will raise this, we will adjourn the house for a couple of times, and then after lunch either we will participate or we will walk out and have the bill passed if it is not a controversial one. Of course, if it is a controversial one, they will put it across. And there was another instance, like we have several procedural devices, like adjournment motion has to be given on that very day. That is only in Lok Sabha, that is not in Rajya Sabha. So, and they know that adjournment motions are not admitted that frequently. But then, even for adjournment motion to be raised, at least 50, if some objection is raised, at least 50 members have to rise in their places. In case of NDA government, when Sri Manohar Joshi was the speaker, and sometime there was an occasion when he allowed all the members to have their say. And then, at the end of the day, he said that I have heard everybody. I disallow the adjournment motion. It was quiet, and the house went about their business. Some correspondent asked them that I have dealt with in my book also under the title "Managing Deception," that how can you allow a members to speak on an adjournment motion even before allowing it? They say that, look, my think, and because now here I will slightly digress. When Neelam Sanjeev Reddy was the speaker, somebody asked me about the rules. He said, the rules, I am a political figure. All the parliamentarians, we all belong to the fraternity of parliamentarians and politicians. The rules and regulations are for the secretary generals and the officers. My role is to run the house smoothly as possible, to take everybody together. So now coming back to Dr. Sri Manohar Joshi, he said that by allowing everybody to speak and let their steam off, I have saved the entire day, because everybody spoke what they had to say. Then I said I disallowed. Had I said that I disallow this, then the members, they would have raised it, and we would have lost not only that day, we would have lost 2 or 3 days more. And similarly, similar approach was by Sri P.A. Sangma also. Then he, because he backed by his experience as a minister of labor, so he used to call them in his room and talk to them. Yes, what do you want exactly? I mean, we have to run this house. We have to do this. And then my first experience interaction was with Mr. Sri Shivraj B. Patilji. He also used to have meetings in his room to have the hang of it. I mean, what the people want. And one more thing I have seen is the critical role of Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, like P.R. Das Munshi, because most of the, I will particularly identify Sri P.R. Das Munshi because he used to have a breakfast meetings before every day when the house starts, with call all the journalists, hear them out, so that, because he's parliamentary affairs is the eyes and the ears of the Prime Minister, is the chief whip of the government. Then after taking the inputs from them, then he accordingly used to brief the Prime Minister, and then they used to plan their trajectory. If somebody has a difference, they would invite them into the speaker's chamber. And then, of course, Sri Somnath Chatterjee was an institution in himself, and then he also used to, puts it that we have a parliamentary device called calling attention. He used to give maximum opportunity to raise that, because in 40 minutes the members can ask a question, the minister will give a reply, they can ask clarificatory question, and if they find that there is something amiss, they can always give a notice of question of privilege against that. And in fact, when I was a visiting fellow at University of Warwick, there was a symposium on India at 70. That was in 2017. they wanted me to speak. There were a lot of academics there from Oxford, Cambridge. There were some people who had come to witness that symposium from BBC also, and then from our own universities, from JNU and other universities. And I was the only non-academic. So I told that I don't have any PPT. I would simply, and I will not speak on party lines. I am speaking on a foreign soil. I will speak about the vibrancy and efficacy of the Indian Parliament, and then I would like to take this opportunity to add to stress here that not much is known about how well our parliamentary system works. What we with due respects, what we watch in TV these days is arguments. I mean, in fact, there is a lot of understanding and a lot of give and take goes on. So there, I simply shared the experience at the office at the table, what all I have witnessed, and there were some contentious issues also, how they have been uh, uh, resolved also. And then in University of Warwick, because there they wanted me to address a conference of medical students. So I said that I have nothing, I am far removed from anything to do with medicine. It is all, they were about to become doctors. But they say that they had one aspect to that, the art of advocacy. So I was the last speaker. So I said that neither I belong to the medical fraternity, nor because, but then I would say all conferences, be it a medical conference or any other conference, in all conferences, they adopt a resolution. Then what next? Because just by discussing in a conference and adopting a resolution, the matter does not end there. So then I said, then there this parliament comes into being. So there are many options. With this resolution, they can go to their concerned member from the belonging constituency who can raise it in the floor of the house, or any member. We have a system of petition. They, based on that resolution, they can make, any citizen can make a petition, have it countersigned by a member of parliament and raise it in the house. And similarly, so that was, in fact, to my surprise, these medical students, they flocked me and they say that you have given, because they had said there were many interesting points which were made out, and that too from they were from University of London. But say, every system, because we follow the Westminster system of governance, so we have to take it further. So it's only then, and eventually it takes care. There is another misconception. When the civil rights liberty movement was there, they say that you pass a Lokpal bill, and then there was a demand that the Lokpal bill should be passed immediately. In fact, I took this opportunity passing a bill. The main aspect which I under, because I take all opportunity whenever I get an opportunity to interact or give a talk or on legislative process. Legislative process is a very complicated thing. Even before a bill is introduced before a house, it has to, the concerned ministry or the government, according to their manifesto, or the ministry wants to have a legislation to take forward them. So there are consultations, and if there are overlap between, like you have social justice and empowerment. So if they want to bring if they want to bring a legislation, they will have to consult the Ministry of Minority Affairs also, Ministry of Tribal Affairs also, and they will also have to have it vetted by the legislative department. Only then it comes to the cabinet. If it is okay, it comes as a proposal, a cabinet note. If it is okay, otherwise there will be a group of ministers. So it is only thereafter it is introduced. So that is a very elaborate process. It is, you can't just say that you pass a bill and next day you bring a bill, and so it can always be struck down. Of course, you can come with another topic. I will. Yeah.
So you recently came out with your book. It's titled Parliament of India, Diverse Dimensions. The title of the book is self-explanatory, and the book has been very well received and was released by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. But for those of us who may not have read the book so far, we'd like to know, what are you telling us in this book about the Parliament, which is different from what is already in the public domain?
Yeah, exactly. This is a compilation of 10 articles. And in fact, the very idea of this book is to factor in all my experiences as a from a practitioner's perspective, as eyewitness account, all those topics which have not been documented because of, for instance, functioning of democratic institutions in India. Now, that is the first chapter that sums up what the main thrust which I have given at the symposium at University of Nottingham. Then there are several parliamentary expressions like catching the eye of the speaker, coming to the well of the house, or they say that they had crossed the floor, and then filibuster. So in fact, they are not, if somebody who's uninitiated, because only so the idea is to benefit the parliamentarians, the parliamentary officers or the state legislative officers or whosoever is interested. Like we have several rituals and ceremonies also. Like why do we have a green color in Lok Sabha or the lower house and a red color in the upper house? I mean that is what we had got from House of Lords and House of Commons, because the green represents the peasants, the common man, and the red represents the royalty, the lords. So all Commonwealth parliaments, they in fact they have the lower house, the directly elected representatives, are green or something from or something from or they say it is okay, na? I got a prop up some.
Please continue.
Are you able to leave? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. In fact, so either they have, they say it is a color which coming from the family of green, like in Australia, the House of Representatives is ocean green, and then their Senate has a maroon color. So that is the another expression. And then we also come across the word whips. I mean, a delegation came, and so there is nothing. In fact, at one place, so I had traced the origin of the whips. One of the chapters is the whips in India Parliament. The whips date back to Sir Edmund Burke, when he had said that while speaking in House of Commons, we have to herd the members, whip the members away from all parts of the England or wherever they are in France to the House of Commons. That's kept into the folklore. And then there is,
what you're saying is that you have brought out and you brought the focus on some of the lesser known facts about, not about the terminology and the origin of these words and what exactly they imply. And it's very true. A lot of these words and phrases we keep hearing, but nobody's really 100% what they mean. So I think that would be very, very useful to read
and there is another chapter, simultaneous membership of the House. Whenever there are elections, a member of Lok Sabha get elected in a state legislature. That 14 days period, how do you compute? A member of Rajya Sabha get elected to Lok Sabha. So I gave an illustration, and then there is conflict of interest. And in the end, I have concluded with the day in a house. How a day in a house look? Every day is a new day. I mean, we start with a fervent prayer that everything goes well, because it is zero margin error. Once you are there, you are there. And so when the House adjourns, and then of course there was one thing regarding the status of expelled members. That is another lacuna in the anti-defection law, and nominated members. So all the thrust of this book, in one sentence, I would say, I have dwelt upon this book. I wanted my first book to be a book on which they on book on the topics and subjects which are not documented hitherto before, and then they can be easily be accessible without going to, because if somebody wants to look, they would have to they would have to look up to several references to come to the conclusion, or only the concerned officers who are dealing with the subject, they may be knowing. So this is in fact a foray in untraversed domains of parliamentary parlance and literature.
Very interesting. I think, yes, I mean, these, as I said, that these are aspects that the lesser known aspects, but assumed aspects. We all think we know this, but it would be extremely interesting to actually know what goes into, what exactly these words mean and where they come from. I'd like to now move on to an issue that has been at the forefront recently, and that is about debate in Parliament. For my viewers' benefit, I would like to say that Mr. Garimella has been very kind enough to write for the Inspire magazine recently, and he has shared an article with us on parliamentary procedures. And before I ask him my question, I'd just like to briefly quote from his article, in which he says that in a democratic polity, elected representatives of people personify the collective voice, will, thought, and aspirations of the people whom they represent in parliament or state legislatures. The Indian Parliament is not only a forum for enacting laws. Now, this is the part that we need to listen to very carefully. He says it is not only a forum for enacting laws, but its critical importance is also that it provides a very effective debating forum. So, would we be right in saying, Mr. Garimella, that Parliament is the foremost and the topmost platform which factors in debate, and that debate is an extremely important aspect of parliamentary of parliament sessions?
Yeah, very true. Because in fact, while I was in a study tour at House of Representatives in Australia, there were some representatives from Finnish Parliament. They were surprised that we do anything other than passing the bills, because legislation is very important, it's the ultimate task. But legislation is only one of the functions of our Parliament. Our Parliament provides, that is the USP, the unique. That is a very unique feature of Parliament. It is the ultimate debating forum. Actually, it gives, because there is a clamor for time, because calling attention Indian innovation 0 hour, they say. A lot of members, they say, even they know that whether what they raise they will be acted upon or say, okay, हमको सुन तो लीजिए. I mean, that is the general refrain. So, in fact, what is raised in the Parliament eventually, if not today, if not tomorrow, maybe next year, but eventually that takes, that paves way and the matter is aired. So, it is always better that even if there are some agitations, occasional instances of coming to the well of the house or some disturbances, that is also a democratic way of protest, because it is far better to raise a topical issue on the floor of the house rather than the party cadres going to the streets and going into Rail Roko, Rasta Roko and others. So the debating forum, and this has in fact been, members look forward actually. But there are several parliamentary devices, which not all, because there are several backbenchers, is only the senior members may will get to speak on a very important subject. So we have calling attention 0 hour 377, various parliamentary.
You mentioned parliamentary devices. Please allow me to once again quote from your article. And you said here, a number of parliamentary devices are available to the members of the Indian Parliament under the rules of procedure and conduct of business, as well as by convention, to enable them to raise issues, elicit information, and obtain decisions of the government on a variety of matters affecting the public. These devices afford ample opportunities to the members not only to review the working of the executive, but also to constructively criticize the policies. I will repeat, but also to constructively criticize the policies, programs, and actions of the government. These devices are also very useful to the members in ventilating public grievances. Why I chose to quote this particular passage is in the light of this misconception that is there that the last parliament session was washed out on account of unparliamentary activities of the opposition. So clearly, what you are saying here in this in your article proves otherwise, and what you are saying here is that debate, and as you are saying, "Humko sun to lijiye." This is a right of the opposition parties, and it is in no way an infringement or causing unrest or not allowing the business to proceed. Yes, the business may be disallowed, but speaking out is an equally important part of parliamentary democracy.
Yeah, that is right. Because, in fact, our rules of procedure, they date back to the Central Legislative Assembly days, way back to mid 1925s, and the same are followed in the upper house and other various state legislatures. And the beauty of our system of our rules of procedures is there are so many parliamentary devices. If you want to raise something urgently, you have an adjournment motion. In Rajya Sabha, you go for a motion for suspension. But if you have a margin, if you want to elicit an opinion from the government, of course, there are questions, parliamentary questions are there. Then, if you want, there is a window. Every parliamentary device has got its own window. Some are valid for a week. So if they want a longish discussion, there are short duration discussions. If they want to immediately flag a situation, we have a calling attention, which is done in 40 minutes. If they want to raise a constituency related matter but comes into central rim with a reply, they have matters under rule 377 in Lok Sabha and special mention in Rajya Sabha and so on and so forth. If they want to raise immediately, we have 0 hour, and of course the ultimate weapon, of course there is a parliamentary privilege, they can raise it any time whether they session or not. And then during budget session, there is also they can speak anything under the sun on the discussion on motion of thanks on the president's address, on general discussion on union budgets. So we have so many parliamentary devices, and the opposition in the monsoon session also, in the previous session also, they were well prepared, as I have clearly stated and clarified in my article. They had chosen which topic has to be raised under which rule, so they were prepared. So in fact, the idea was that had they be, they have been heard. Thereafter, whether it is, there are some discussions which don't entail voting at all. But at least if they speak on the floor of the house, because speaking of the floor of the house has its importance, and our parliament is the unique feature has always been that once it is spoken on the floor of the house, it forms part of the debate and it remains for posterity. Or it is always, because there are a lot of parliamentary devices, and the opposition, various opposition parties, Indian National Congress and all other opposition parties, they are well conversant with which parliamentary device to use at what point of time. So they had given multiple notices on various issues. They have not left any stone unturned, lest they may say कि आपसे notice नहीं आया है करके. So there were notices. In fact, had there been discussions, this kind of the situation could have been well avoided. There could have been heated discussion. That's a different thing. Because if you have an heated discussion, if you have in the words of Sri Somnath Chatterjee, structured debates, I mean, there is a point, there is a counterpoint. Yeah. So, I mean, any things would come forward. So here, in fact, they were prepared. But if they give a notice, if it fits in the timeline, and they have made good homework, and all parties have given, and there was a cohesion also in both the houses, as well as all opposition parties also, and they made it clear that these are the issues which we want to raise on the floor of the house and hear what the government has to say in the matter. So that was the sum and substance. These parliamentary devices, if they are used gainfully, so our still is a vibrant democracy. And then the only thing is, of course, the space should be given to all the members to have their say.
Yes. Yes.
Eventually, agree or not, that's a different thing.
True.
And the same is the passing in the bills. Not all members get the opportunity, but by various other parliamentary devices, because they need, because as you have quoted from a very article, member is not an individual. He is a representative of the entire constituents.
Yes.
Those who have voted or those who have even not voted,
Member,
their voice can be heard in the house.
member is
So on that
mandated
note,
to speak. Yes. Yes.
yeah, exactly.
If a member is quiet, then what is she or he there for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Mr. Garimella, it's been an extremely illuminating session, I have to say. I mean, you have not only thrown light on parliamentary procedures, you have unraveled a lot of mysteries for us. You have given us an insight into the Parliament House itself. We have got to get a peek into what goes on in the corridors of power. And very importantly, you have reassured us that the parliamentary procedures and our parliament itself is very robust, and it has stood the test of time. And it continues to be one of the, if I may say so, the healthiest places in the whole world as democracies go. And you have also reassured us that that members of parliament are there as representatives of people, and therefore they are there to speak, and they are not there to just sit. They are not there for decorative purposes. They are there to bring the voice of the people into the parliament. It's indeed very heartening to hear all this. And as we go into the winter session, I would request you to join us again post that session and unravel some of the things that will happen in that session, and we might request you to explain some of those to us. I'm afraid we'll have to close for now. Thank you once again for taking time out to be here with us. It's been truly enriching. Thank you very much, Mr. Garimella. And with that, we come to the end of today's interactive session. Thank you, viewers, for being with us for in this stimulating journey. If you'd like to share your thoughts and ideas with us, or indeed be part of an interactive session, do reach out to us at inspire@profcongress.in. We look forward to hearing from you.
And thank you very much for this opportunity to put forth my views.
We are indeed honored. We look forward to hearing from you, viewers. Do write to us at inspire@profcongress.in. Remember, no idea is ever too small, and neither does any exchange of ideas ever go waste. I'm convinced that all of these always grow into something sometime. So keep those ideas coming and share them with us. Till next time then, goodbye and Jai Hind.